Blue Horseshoe loves Anacott Steel.
Hello, my friends. How's it going? It's going to be a great podcast today. We're going to talk about Coinbase and cryptocurrency. And don't worry if you're invested in cryptocurrency or if you know nothing about it. This is going to be a good podcast because I'll go over it and this amazing federal lawsuit against Coinbase. And unlike most podcasts today, I'll explain that I am personally involved in this matter because I have 91 cases against Coinbase and 91 clients and 91 cases. And I could explain what we're doing and how we're going after these suckers. All right. But first of all, happy Father's Day. Father's Day is coming up in a few days. So all the fellow fathers out there, happy Father's Day, my friends. And let's go over this now. Okay. So, well, first of all, what does Coinbase do and all that? So Coinbase operates as a kind of marketplace where people can buy and sell cryptocurrency, right? And the cryptocurrency is, a lot of people, there's obviously mixed feelings about cryptocurrency, right? And I could see why. I will say this, in my opinion, it's not completely kind of like, something that's useless and just pure gambling or anything like that. I do think there are a lot of values to it. In fact, in one episode, we talked about the different values of cryptocurrency, and that's why it's so popular. If you think about it, it's a way for people to conduct transactions in a split second and all over the world. So somebody in San Diego can buy or pay or get something from, pay somebody in whatever, Egypt, and it will take a split second to do that transaction. Whereas if you want, if you're going to get, let's say, $100 from somebody in Egypt, like it will take about 2 weeks for you to get that money. So this is a difference between a split second transaction and 2 weeks. And also the transaction fees are very minimal when it comes to cryptocurrency in terms of buying and selling. Whereas if you're getting $100 from someone in Egypt, by the time it goes through all the different banks until it gets to San Diego, you might only get like $70 or $80, depending on how it works. So that's a big difference, right? And especially if you're dealing with multi-millions of dollars or many transactions. Also, it's, how do I put it softly here? It's a good way to avoid paying taxes for a lot of people, right? That's always a benefit. And some of it it's not completely illegal to consider this in terms of why it's, because there's a theory of if you're bartering, if I say, whatever, I'll do legal work in exchange for whatever, like roofing the roof tiles or something, right? Whatever. All of that is an untaxed transaction, because there was no money being exchanged. So in theory, it's like the Coinbase, it's almost like bartering. Someone says, well, I made a lot, I was doing services and I was getting a lot of Bitcoins out of it, but I never cashed it in. So they're just sitting in my, Bitcoin account or Coinbase account. So that kind of gain is not taxed at that time. It could be taxed when it's exchanged for dollars down the line, but it's not taxed now, right? So it's, there is a avoidance of paying taxes, both in a legal way and sometimes in an illegal way, okay? And it's always, you could consider it as a way of also storing wealth, or hiding wealth or hiding money. It's instead of putting it under your mattress, some people put it in cryptocurrency. And of course, it's also a fun gambling for a lot of people, right? They'll buy this, they'll buy that, see if it goes up, see if it goes down, all that good jazz. All right. And I will say this. Okay, so Coinbase operates as a marketplace where you could buy and sell different cryptocurrencies, and Coinbase makes a lot of money, billions of dollars. Thank you very much. And every time there's different transactions, they will make money on every single transaction. And there's also some other ways it makes money in the sense that they will sell assets for more than they're worth, and they will buy it from you for a little less than it's worth. And so that's another way, in addition, that Coinbase makes money. And that's when, in my 91 cases against Coinbase, it's over the kind of, it's the way Coinbase kind of operates is that, let's say you own a lot of Bitcoin and you're selling some, it'll say a fair market value of Bitcoin is whatever, let's say $23,000. Then when you go to sell it, it will give you only $22,800. Like, it'll give you less than that fair market value. And in big print, there'll be a little thing that says, and our transaction fee is $100. You know, so sometimes the user will think that the only thing that they're paying is that transaction fee, that list transaction fee, Coinbase fee. But in reality, what's happening is Coinbase is also underpaying you for your Bitcoin. And then the same thing happens when you sell it. There'll be a transaction fee. And then, when you buy it, the same thing happens. There'll be a transaction fee. And then what ends up happening is they'll list the market price at 28,000 or 20, whatever number. But when you go to buy it, like after you go through a few screens, it'll up the price a little bit right before you buy it. So Coinbase makes money in what they state is their Coinbase fee, and in that kind of increase or decrease in price. And they're the ones that set the price that they're kind of buying and selling it you from. And so you don't really have a choice except to not do the transaction. But as we're going to see here, there's reasons why Coinbase can't do that and do the other things. All right. And of course, if you have Coinbase and you want to freaking go after them, feel free, give me a call. Okay. But let's talk about this crazy lawsuit that was filed yesterday. All of Coinbase's trouble seems so far away, right? On June 6, 2023, which was yesterday. Hey, look, World War II trivia. What happened on June 6th? D-Day, storming the beaches of Normandy. That was on June 6th. So it's kind of cool. This lawsuit was filed on that day, the same day as the D-Day and storming the beaches of Normandy. Okay. Anyway, like I said before, I wanted to do a World War II podcast. And what do you guys think? Come on.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, we'll do it. That sounds like fun. All right. If I get enough interest, you never know. Okay, so on June 6, 2023, this is the federal government, the Security and Exchange Commission, which is an entity in the federal government, filed this ginormous lawsuit against Coinbase. And now I'm going to explain it. So in this lawsuit, what the federal government is alleging is that Coinbase is operating as an exchange for securities, and it's operating as a broker for securities, and it's operating as a clearinghouse for securities. And I will, go over what all of that means. And the law is that any of those, they have to register with the SEC. There's all these disclosure rules that they have to do with the SEC. If they operate as any one of those three, and they're operating as all three of those three, and because of that, they're violating these federal laws that date back to 1934. Now, why did the federal government enact laws in 1934 to regulate the stock market and securities? Because of the Great Depression, right? The Great Depression, people were buying and selling stocks and acting as stockbrokers, and companies were issuing stocks just left and right, and bonds and all these jazz, right? And they weren't disclosing certain things. They weren't explaining the risk. They weren't explaining all the assets they had. And so people were buying it, and, as the story, right? So, and then everyone just kept buying things, and there was all this speculative investing, and then it all crashed, right? And then after that, the federal government enacted the Security and Exchange Act of 1934 to prevent that type of thing from happening. And now it's happening. So that's why the federal government is stepping in to stop this from happening. So what is the allegation here? is that what Coinbase is doing is this. There will be these different cryptocurrencies. And now let me just explain kind of like a quick summary of how like a crypto asset is. So for those of you that don't buy and invest in this, God bless you. You're doing the right thing. No, just kidding. But let me explain what it is. So there's these different entities that will create kind of like all these different codes. All right. And then you can buy certain amounts of those codes, or blocks of those codes. And then when you buy it, there will then be kind of like the public address of those codes, so that everybody knows what everybody has. So it's transparent. And then there will be the private code. The private code being like your own little like password to those codes, so that you'll have your own numbering code to the numbering code, right? And then that will allow you to kind of like direct, sell those codes or transfer them or buy more, that type of thing. And then obviously there's a value, and the value is only what people put to those codes, right? So then there's a value of like, like for example with Bitcoin, if you own like a whole Bitcoin, it's called, that value that people pay for it now is about like whatever, $22,000, give or take. And then, so that's what that is a very, very, very quick summary of it. Okay. Obviously there's a lot of software involved. And then there's also, different, like when it's bought and sold, there's these different, computer programs, and they're called nodes that will approve the transaction, because then they want everyone to, like, the ledger is kept by everybody so that everybody knows what everybody has. And all that. Okay, so what Coinbase is doing is this. They then will buy a lot of these assets, right? And then, so let's say they own a ton of Bitcoin. Then the individual investors, when they go to buy or sell the Bitcoin, what is happening is that there's no buying and there's no selling involved, all right? Because what happens is this. So Coinbase is, they kind of, let's say, so they're holding all of these virtual coins, right? And then when there are 108 million users are buying and selling, they're just buying and selling it like from each other, okay? They're not really like buying any new codes themselves. And so Coinbase, this is what's called the clearinghouse, okay? Meaning that they own all of this. And then they just keep their own internal ledgers in terms of who of their users are buying and selling from each other, all right? So that is the one of the things. Now, that's not illegal. I mean, that's what happens with the stocks, right? It's not like when you go to Merrill Lynch and you buy and sell stocks, like they have their own kind of ledger of who owns what and everything. But there's a big difference here in the sense that Merrill Lynch is a broker, and they keep tabs on all of this, and they're regulated, and they have to do these disclosures of who are their investors and what they're buying and all of that. Okay. Whereas Coinbase is not doing that. And then the other thing that Coinbase does, so that's what's called the clearinghouse. They're the custodian of the assets. Okay. Now, the next thing they do is that they're also the ones that are operating an exchange. Now, what that means is this. They are setting the price of what people can buy it at and what people can sell it at. And they're kind of conducting those transactions. Now, the reason why the federal government, like the New York Stock Exchange, it's a different entity, the New York Stock Exchange, than the brokers. And it's a different entity that actually is the custodian of the stocks and everything. Unlike Coinbase, so they're the custodian of the assets, and they're the ones that are operating the buying and selling, and they're the ones that are setting the prices for the buying and selling. And then the other thing that they're doing is that they are actually making a profit per transaction. So with the example I gave you, so if I go to whatever my Fidelity account and I say, okay, I want to sell 500 shares of Ford. So Fidelity may charge me whatever, let's say $20 to sell that. And then so that's it. They'll charge me $20 to do that. It could be, and then the price, they're not setting it. Fidelity's not setting the price of it. The New York Stock Exchange is kind of having the price, and they're listing like what people are buying it and what people are selling at. So it's not like the same entity that is doing both. And certainly it's not the same entity that actually owns those stocks, So here, Coinbase is doing all of the above. And what the federal government, and what's clear is that there is a lot of various conflicts of interest here. And what I mean by that is, if Coinbase realizes, one stock is not selling, all of a sudden it could reduce the price, right? If it's realizing that one stock, one coin is very, very valuable, it could raise the transaction costs on what it, to buy it, and then so they are indeed, they can manipulate the market that way. Now, manipulating the market is okay if it's, your own like if you're selling your own shoes, like Nike manipulates the market in terms of what it sells its own shoes for, right? And then, so that is okay. Now, the difference here is that when you go to the public and you're asking for investments, which is what Coinbase does. Coinbase spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year in marketing. And they are marketing so that people can put their money in Coinbase. You see what I'm saying? So they're marketing so that people invest in Coinbase. So when you do that, then anytime you solicit the public for investments and solicit the public for money, and you're not like selling shoes, you're getting that like as an investment where people think they're going to earn interest on it and earn money on it and everything, then you are, like I said, you are soliciting the public for money, and you are setting the value of this investment, and you're upping it or decreasing it depending on how you want to do it. Anytime you do that, now you have entered the realm of buying and selling securities, and that is what is regulated in the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934, right? And this is why the federal government made these laws after the Great Depression, is because there is a very big threat that everybody could lose all their money, okay? And that was easy to do because if people, if Coinbase oversells something or overbuys something, or, some other stock or some other exchange, finds a way to create a coin or whatever that will outdo what Coinbase is doing, and so everyone could lose their money in this, in what they're putting into Coinbase. Now, I want to go over my 91, and I don't call them lawsuits because of the terms and services in the Coinbase contract. A lot of big companies have done this, and I've mentioned this like here and there in different podcasts. So the terms of use with Coinbase states that if you have a dispute with Coinbase, you cannot sue Coinbase. Isn't that nuts? You cannot even sue them if you wanted to. If you have a dispute with Coinbase, you have to first try to work out that dispute with Coinbase. You have to like send them a letter, and that's one of the things that chaps my is that you can't even go after it. You have to first send them a letter, and then you have to you have to give them like 60 days to try to resolve the dispute with you. It's either 30, 60, or 90 days. They keep changing it. So you have to let them try to resolve the dispute with you. Then if that doesn't work, you have to, get this, send them another letter to give them another opportunity to delay your issues, all right? And then only if that doesn't work, so that's like the round 2, then you can file an arbitration and not a lawsuit. The difference being when you have a lawsuit, you go to the court, and the court, you have a judge who is not paid by Coinbase, they're paid by, the public funds, right? The taxpayers' money. So in theory, right, the judge doesn't have a financial incentive, whereas the arbitrator is paid by Coinbase. All right. So in theory, not in theory, definitely they have a financial incentive to rule in favor of Coinbase. Now I'm not saying they do. If the arbitrators were here from the American Arbitration Association, they would say, we take ethical classes, Joe Samo, and we don't care about our financial bias. That does not cloud our judgment. We make legal decisions based on fairness and equity and not on our financial interest. Okay, fine. That I think is nonsense. I always say, whenever there's a financial bias, somebody's going to take advantage of it. So maybe not everybody, but somebody will. So here in all of our cases, we had to do it that way. We had to go after Coinbase in a arbitration. Now, the other thing what drives me nuts and drives everyone else nuts, there's also in the Coinbase terms and conditions, it states, in addition to that you have to go through arbitration, you also agree that you will not join or start a class action lawsuit. So that is what's commonly called the class action waiver. So Coinbase has in its terms and services a class action waiver. So people can't, you cannot file a class action against Coinbase. You agree to it when you join it. For better or worse, the United States Supreme Court has long held that those clauses are enforceable. All right? They are enforceable. So because lawyers have tried over and over saying, oh, it's not a fair provision. People never read the contracts. They don't understand it. They don't watch Joe Samo's podcast because they're smart. No, I'm just kidding. Right? So they don't understand that it's not fair to enforce that class action provision. And the United States Supreme Court has held over and over, we're going to enforce that provision. So you can't join a class action. Now, by the way, the Securities and Exchange Commission filed a lawsuit in the federal court. Jurisdiction. Okay. The Security and Exchange Commission filed in a federal court because they never agreed to this arbitration provision. So they're the federal government. They're allowed to file in a federal court. In terms of jurisdiction, with Joe Samo's clients, the individual users, they agreed that a federal court or a state court has no jurisdiction and that the only entity that has jurisdiction is an arbitrator, a private arbitrator hired by Coinbase. So, so that's the deal when it comes to jurisdiction. And they love going to arbitration because it's just their home court advantage, you could say, and there's no jury in arbitration. It's not like a public record. It's, like I said, they pay the arbitrators, unlike the judges. So, okay, all of that. Karl Marx warned the capitalist society of this. So one of his Karl Marx's theories was that it's impossible to have a free market. Here's why. In a free market, what ends up happening is the big companies will come together and eventually there'll be like one big company, like Standard Oil or, whatever. There'll be just one huge company. And then once there's one huge company, then they control the market and they control the employees and they control kind of how everything's done. And they'll kill all the competition because they'll just merge with them. And then once that happens, there's no more free market because it's controlled by that company. And that company is kind of like the government in terms of that product and service. And that could be a big deal if it's oil or water or, transportation, whatever, right? So once that happens, then that company is like a government almost, or it's as powerful as the government, in some cases more powerful than the government. And that's why you need like these federal antitrust laws. And the same thing here with these Securities and Exchange. So Coinbase if it was a totally free market, then they could do whatever they want, right? They could they don't have to explain all of this. They don't have to disclose every little thing to the federal government. They can force, if they could force the users to go to arbitration and all that jazz, right? So if that happens, then it will kind of, they'll become too powerful. Then they can set their own rules, and then there'll be no free market because people can't, they're going to lose all their money to Coinbase or to whatever, right? So the irony or the impossibility that Karl Marx said is that, okay, so great. So now the government will have to enact all these rules so that they can have a free market. Like they have to enact these antitrust rules because Amazon will buy everybody, like the federal government stopped JetBlue and American Airlines from merging because all these airlines, they just keep merging. If there was no rules, we'd have one airline and then we'd have no free market because that airline would say $10,000 to fly from San Diego to, whatever, New York, and you don't have a choice, So that is why we have all of these laws in our free market. And that's what Karl Marx said. This is going to be, it's impossible to have that completely free market. So let me now go over kind of more about this lawsuit here. The federal government, in its lawsuit against Coinbase, also pointed out what another thing that Coinbase does. I said earlier, they make a lot of money from these transaction fees, and the transaction fees are funny in the sense that they're not real transactions. Darn it! So one person sells their Bitcoin and one person buys Bitcoin. They didn't. It's like the only thing that changed was in Coinbase's ledger. They said, okay, now Joe Samo has less Coinbase Bitcoin and whatever. Mateo has more.
Joe Samo.
So nothing really we just both paid hundreds of dollars when nothing freaking happened except in their own little ledger it changed. Now, this is extremely important because can you imagine what will happen if their ledger is hacked, right? Oh my God, it'll be a big disaster. Or if somebody embezzles money from that ledger, like somehow, cooks the books and sends those, the ledger stuff to his own account. Or if Coinbase, loses money, like the cost of their employees or whatever, they get sued by the federal government or something else happens where they don't have, they can't operate properly. If any of that happens, then all of these people's investments in Coinbase will go down the gutter. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is why the federal government is stating that now to operate this way. Now, don't get me wrong, right? The New York Stock Exchange, if somebody hacks the New York Stock Exchange and changes all these things, or if somebody hacks the custodian of the stocks, right? Or if somebody hacks the brokers, if somebody hacks Fidelity or Merrill Lynch or whatever, then we're going to be in a serious trouble, correct? All right. But the difference there is that they're all regulated by the SEC. All right. So here's some examples here. Offers of $5 in Bitcoin as a first trade incentive, 50% off of each referral's trading fees for their first 3 months, get up to $400 in rewards with Coinbase if you do certain things, and get up to $200 for getting started. Earn free crypto after making your first purchase. So those are pretty cool incentives, right? I feel like it's like buy your first pair of shoes and get another one for $1 or whatever. So what is BOGO? What is BOGO? Buy one, get one free, right? So what is going on? Can you imagine this? They are trying to get people to invest in their structure, right? Because they're trying to get unlike if like I said, if they're buying and selling shoes or cars, nobody's going to buy a car reasonably thinking that they're doing it as like an investment in the sense that every month they'll get interest or something like that. Or if they buy shoes, or if you go buy food, buy lunch and get dinner free or whatever, you're not getting it. That's not an investment. But when you're putting money in Coinbase, that's an investment. That's the difference. That's why it's a security. So their marketing tools of this type of like solicitation, it's very enticing, right? And it's like showing people, oh man, we're giving out free money for you to invest with us. And that's why the federal government is saying we need to regulate this. The other thing that what they do, and this one is a pure investment. Without getting into too much detail that will, potentially bore the heck out of everyone here, is that they have these staking pools. When I first read that, I'm like, I want to go swimming. No, not that kind of pool. What they do is they get a bunch of investors together and they pool, like they get all of the money together, and they basically, with all that money, they like operate as the like stakeholders in different coins. All right, and then they'll that way they kind of operate as the validators of different transactions and all that jazz. And so when they do that, so let's say there's a certain coin and they're the validator, right? Like this pool of investors. And then one person sells something, one person buys something. And if they do it off of Coinbase, they just do it from the different computer codes, then that's a transaction. And sometimes the entity that validates that, it'll make a little bit of whatever the freaking coin is. And so there's like money that's made or coins that are made, right? And then by that investment, the more you pool your resources, the more money that they can make. And so Coinbase, sorry about that. Coinbase has this this one money-making scheme that the more people that pool their money together, then from all of that, like they'll make money from acting as these validators in these different computer programs, and that Coinbase will get like a 30% commission of that, and then the rest of the money will go to the different investors. Like imagine, if you will, a pyramid. Okay, so here's a pyramid. All these people put their money here on the bottom, and then it gets kind of filtered. Some of it goes to Coinbase, and as long as there's a lot of money in the middle, and then a certain amount will get back to the investors. Okay, and as long as people keep putting money in, it's all going to work out, right? Okay, so that right there is another example of Coinbase making a ton of money by getting people to invest with them. Now, here's what I call the Joe Samo problem, all right? The federal government in the year 2021, Coinbase wanted to go public. What that means is it used to be a privately held company, and then they wanted to get money from the public so that, they could raise a lot of money. This is a little different than them selling, cryptocurrency. This is Coinbase selling shares of Coinbase to the public, okay? So to do that, it took them a couple years of getting approval from the federal government and kind of explaining to the federal government, this is the business that we do, this is how we do it, this is how we make money, this is our assets that we hold, this is how, why people, if they buy shares of Coinbase, this is how, eventually they could make money on those shares, and this is how many shares we're issuing, here's the prospectus and all that good stuff. Now, in 2021, on April 1, 2021, of all days, April 1, 2021, the federal government said, yes, okay, issue your IPO. And then the federal government, they have a policy that says, by approving the IPO, we are not approving your business. We're just approving the IPO. So go ahead and go to the public and raise your billions of dollars. God bless you, right? And that was in 2021. Just about a couple years later. And the best part is that they've been like analyzing and like researching all of this for all of this time. Just a couple years later, they filed this huge federal lawsuit against the company that they approved. And Coinbase hasn't been doing anything different in the last couple of years. I mean, they got more accounts and, maybe a few things different, but it's the same thing, right? I could see why people hate lawyers. It's like, how do you get around that? That's beautiful. Okay, let me get this straight. Federal government, you approved Coinbase to do a public offering in 2021. Yes, we did. And you let them go to the public and get money from the public to invest in Coinbase. Yes, we did. And you're saying this whole time they have been violating every important rule of the Security and Exchange Commission Act of 1934. Yes. Okay. Who the heck approved the IPO? Oh, the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC. Okay. Who's filing the lawsuit now? The SEC. Man, this is the worst thing a lawyer could do. Other than starting a podcast. Other than starting a podcast, the worst thing these lawyers can do is approve everything and give them the green light in the year 2021 just to sue the effing crap out of them in 2023. God, I hate lawyers, but I love lawyers too. This is, I love them and I hate them. In this lawsuit, all right, now we get to what we can call my favorite part. All right, after all of this, now we get to my favorite part. I think, and like I said, I'm biased because I have 91 arbitrations against these jerks, and I'll take as many as anyone wants because I have been saying this for years that what they're doing is not legal. Okay. In their prayer for relief, it's called. All right, you guys, everyone ready for this? Sitting down here, check this out. They want to permanently enjoin Coinbase, meaning enjoin means like stop them from acting in this manner. And they want to force them to register like public, like all of these transactions, kind of like the New York Stock Exchange has to register it and all of that. And then my favorite part, they're asking the federal government, ordering Coinbase to disgorge all ill-gotten gains resulting from their violations, and ordering Coinbase to disgorge all ill-gotten gains resulting from its business with prejudgment interest. I mean, they have to give back all of the money they've made plus interest. and gosh darn it, they better pay in real money, not this freaking Bitcoin crap. Okay. And they want ordering defendants to pay civil money penalties enacted. And those are big penalties for each transaction, and ordering Coinbase to pay civil money penalties pursuant to the different laws in the federal government. Okay. So they want them to repay all the gains that they've made, plus interest, plus penalties. And just in case that's enough, granting any other relief and further relief this court may deem appropriate or necessary. So they want to destroy them. All right. You know what? I'm totally interested to see what you think. What do you think of these, the cryptocurrency and the Coinbase and this whole wild, wild west market? I would love to hear your experiences. And of course, if you want to go after Coinbase, I'd love to do that too. All right, great stuff today. I'll see you guys next week. Happy Father's Day.